So my guest today is Bryce Englin, not England, Englin, Englin, who served in the military as a member of the Air Force from 1996 to 2016. During his career, he spent 14 of his 20 years overseas and was stationed in Turkey, Iceland, twice in Japan, Egypt, Djibouti, and also deployed to Kuwait and Afghanistan. As he says, being in the military was fun and the 20-year adventure was well worth it. But what do you do when you see the writing on the wall that your time is over? Bryce, welcome. I appreciate you making time today.
Jeff, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come on your show for a few minutes today and talk about, give these guys the no BS and big game experience on how you find a job when transitioning from the military.
Hey, watch those terms. Those are mine.
I'm not taking your terms from you. I just want to highlight that this is the place people come when they want to get that real unfiltered experience.
20 years in, why'd you decide to leave the service?
It was time to retire. So a lot of folks, I thought I would be able to go to 24, 30, make that E7, E89. I was an E7, but when you hit a certain peak and you hit about 20 years, you find that you're mentally tired. The traveling is well worth it. It is a lot of fun, but it just kind of was one of those things where it became, okay, yeah, it's time to go. And a lot of making those two top enlisted grades, much the same for most officers. If you're somebody who makes colonel, or you go to the 04, 05, and colonel being the 06 level, it generally, for some, they don't want to go higher because at that point sometimes it becomes a political game, and a lot of it is really who you know. And that's not a knock, because there are some great generals that I've come across in the military, but a lot of times it really is who you know. And that is even goes even deeper when you start talking about getting ready to depart from the military.
Interesting. So there you were. You made the decision. How much time did you give yourself to figure out, okay, I'm going to leave. When do I start looking for something else?
They tell you start looking a year out. I probably started looking the day I signed retire. I put the little signature blocks on the retirement paperwork and realized that it was too soon. What I should have done, and I had a few things I'd been doing before, but what I would say to anybody, start that search 24 to 36 months out. If you know you're going to be coming in to do a 4-year stint, or you're going to go to, you're going to go to 5, 6, 8 years, 10 years. I would say by year one, if you know the military is not for you, but you're going to go in and do that stint, you know what? Start getting to know people, build relationships, build rapport. Even if you're going to get out and go to school, the relationships, the networking part is what's going to help you out. But really, when you're there, you need to figure out what you specifically want to do after, specifically do what you want to do. You want to start thinking about your second career, whether you're, doing a 4-year or 40-year stint. Think about that 2 to 3 years out.
Interesting. And that works with the assumption that people think that way.
Yes, and unfortunately, a lot of folks don't. I'm guilty. My hands up. I am, no kidding. I will say I was guilty of that, and I should have listened to the advice and started building relationships. I went through a pretty cool, in my opinion, it was a pretty cool 2.5-year journey, and something that I would really, really suggest to anybody out there to make the benefits of things is the best way that I can say it. So for instance, if you're going to sit there and you're going to, get out there, have a plan, make sure you've got money set aside. They harp on this in the military all the time. Living expenses. You want to make sure that you've got everything you need squared away, because when you're moving from the military, you're moving into the unknown. And there is a phase to be involved in when you're moving into the unknown.
I'm going to pause you there for a second because there was a point I think it was worth mentioning as you were talking about, making the decision to leave and giving yourself 24 to 36 months. And folks, I'll just simply say, networking in the civilian sector is the way you find work. And if you're listening to Bryce, he's telling you it's the way you find it within the service and outside the service as well. And thus, to me, I'll just suggest the first time you start thinking about leaving the service is probably the time you need to start thinking about your networking and doing that kind of action for civilian life. Because even if you're not committed to leaving, it's the point where you can start doing the research right away to figure out how to approach this strange world. And everyone tells me it's a strange world by comparison to the military that you face when you leave service to the country.
And Jeff, I'll tell you, there's about 4 different ways that people usually will, 4 different areas where I'd say people usually go looking for work as they get out. So the first one is that, you got the young person who gets out and they're going to go get their education. They're going to go to college, use their GI Bill, which is great. That's going to be your 4-8 year person. Then there's guys like me I got my undergrad while I was in, and I finished my grad about a year after I got, close to 8 months after I got out. I had my MBA done. And what you do at that point is you find that you're going to maybe look for a job, usually as a contractor. Contracting work is something some folks do, and there's some great sites out there for contracting job. The other one is a lot of folks go to look at USA Jobs, which is another, and I use that as a website. And I'll talk about that here in a few short minutes about those types of things if you're going to go that route. I've seen folks who
there's a fourth one that you hadn't gotten to yet. You said there are 4 ways that they find work, and you got through 3 of them.
Yep, and I'm getting ready to give you the 4th.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, actually, let me rephrase. It's about 5. I'm thinking now, because school's 1, but there's other 2 ones. They go into the private sector, or you start your own business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, let's unpack these. I think unpacking these is a good way to do that. So if you're going to go to the private sector, as you said earlier, building relationships, LinkedIn is going to be your friend. Facebook, Twitter, they're all going to be your friends. Instagram is going to be your friend. But here's the thing. If you're going to go to the private sector and you want to work, you may be disciplined, and the military may say, hey, there's a lot of companies that want to hire military folks, but the problem is there's a disconnect. And when I say there's a disconnect, most military members don't realize you can't use military wording. You can't use acronyms. You can't use what you did in the military. You have to civilianize that. And that's where mentorship can come in to help, finding different companies. And there's lots of folks out there who want to see folks really, really take the initiative and put it in. So those are some big things. You have to, if you want to go civilian sector, or go into the private sector and you want to work, you really, really need to reinvent yourself, and you need to present yourself as knowing what you want, because you need to show that company why they should be willing to take the investment in you and make that investment in you.
And I'll interrupt and say, years ago, I interviewed a woman who left the service, lieutenant, worked in the Middle East, and came back. And she talked about how hard it was for her to adapt. Part of it was she was no BS, understandably, given where she was stationed. It's important. You can't fool around. And she gets to the private sector where, by comparison, people look lazy. And it was hard for her initially to communicate in ways that people would get her. And at the same time, once she got into roles, there she is, no BS, cracking the whip, and not well responded to. So
Yeah.
I'm just mentioning there is an adjustment that you'll experience when you leave.
And that's actually a good point that you bring up. There was a retired four-star general, Doc Fogelsong was his name. And he went down, and I actually looked at this. He used to be on Armed Forces Network all the time, talking about his time in the jet as his commander of United States Air Forces in Europe. I saw this when I lived back in Egypt. Then I read a story. He went to the University of Mississippi, and he tried to use his military, that military mindset there, and it did not go over well. He was the president, as a retired four-star president. I think it was the president of the University of Mississippi out over in Oxford, and it just did not work well. So I can agree with you. There are stories out there of things, and I highlight that because I don't want to see. I don't. To me, it's not about rank. It's not about, it's about what you can bring to the team when you start looking at the private sector, and it's about what you want to do. So again, it's not about rank. It's not about importance, because when you leave the military, everybody is on the same playing field when you go to a company, private sector. The next one I'll talk about is USA jobs. So a lot of folks get out and they transition, and they realize, hey, I want to go be a civil servant. That's a great opportunity. There is a need for good civil servants. When you're going to go put your application in at USA jobs, you want to make sure that you are looking for those things you're qualified for, and grades and educational requirements. Something I will highlight within going into the civil servant sector, the GS, as I call it, you have to, longer is better on your applications. So where the private sector wants quick, highlight, flash, they want to make sure, you got to make sure, obviously wording is different, but when you start putting things together, longer is better in USA jobs. Highlight what you did in your job. But here's one thing I'll tell you, and if you get picked up and referred and you go in for they call you for an interview, the guys are going to ask you, why do you think I should hire you? Tell them why they should hire you. And I would even recommend, if the boss asks you that question in the civil sector, tell them, make yourself stand out for why you believe you would be a good fit for the company or for an organization, whether it's in public or private sector service. Then we have the contractor duties. You've got a lot of contracts, a lot of companies that are DoD contracts out a lot. And matter of fact, many branches of the U.S. government contract out a lot. And I want to highlight, civil service is not just for Department of Defense. There are other, Department of Energy, State Department. There are government agencies across the executive branch, Homeland Security. All these other agencies are going to be hiring folks. So know that you do have the ability to make it, to get hired. But I would say, contracting. When you're going to do contracting, there's this great website called Clearance Jobs. But I would also look at who are the big guys, the big contract companies. And some folks may not realize this. Boeing, Boeing. Go to Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, and I'm just giving names that I'm aware of out there who have come across. They're Zenitex. These are companies that are receiving, that have current contracts with the government or always have things available. They're also corporations. So you may find that, you find out that you want to get hired for a job on the doing contractor work, but they may say, hey man, we like you for, hey, we really like you for corporate. So they are a private business as much as they are a government contractor. So I really want to highlight that is, look at those sites, go out and look at those different companies. But when you're going to interview, you're going to you make sure you have background on the company. I remember I was at a job fair 2016. I'm passing my application around, and I had one of the guys, I think it was Lockheed Martin. He looked at me. He's like, "What's this do? This doesn't do anything for me. You need to show what you want to do. Don't give me a generalized functional resume. Give me something that shows what's going to make you capable of the team." And that was some great advice. Really, really great top level advice. But there are a lot of great companies out there that will hire veterans, because veterans also bring something that generally it's very easy. They have security clearance. That's one of the benefits you gain from being, from being a retired military member. It's very easy for a company as a contractor to hire you to come in and do contracting work because you've got that clearance already. So just some of those things to know. But the big thing is, those are the ways you're going to look at it. And if you decide you want to go into private business, I would tell anybody, look at the VA. Make sure, the VA has some great programs, especially for those who are medically retiring. And that's a very completely big or different other process. It's actually a process I went through. But when I was medically retiring, I found that the VA had a lot of great things. And they have a program called vocational rehab. Now, I want to highlight, this is only for those who are being medically retired from the military. So this doesn't apply to everybody. But if you find out that you've got a medical condition that is going to require you to retire from the military, and I want to highlight that medical retirement could be for anybody with a service-connected injury, disability, or something that happened while they're in that the DOD realizes they're no longer, they want to serve, but the DOD says, hey, we really can't have you serving. And basically, vocational rehab allowed me to complete my master's degree. So it helped pay for my master's degree. So you may have some programs out there, and I think they also, under vocational rehab, also have something to help new business owners. But there are state-based organizations, depending on the state you're in. States have their own Department of VAs, and there are small business administration, so many different entities that can help folks get there. But also mentorship. But I'm
going to come to that in 1 second. How did you find your position?
It was a journey. So the way I can start out to where I'm at today and what I'm happy with, I'm happy with what I do today. But I was retiring out of the state of Alabama, and I did not find, I couldn't find a job down here. Made some mistakes in interviews. I went in kind of cocky, acted like I thought I was ready and I knew what I was talking to. And eventually I had to take a job out in Hawaii. So I went out to Hawaii for about 7 months.
Poor baby, went to Hawaii. Oh.
I know. And I worked at Indo-Pacific Command, doing knowledge management. Well, after a little while of doing that, I realized knowledge management and IT weren't my thing. And IT is one of those that requires a unique personality. It's just wasn't my bailiwick. And I decided at that point to eventually come back to Alabama. And I was working temp job for Alpha Insurance, doing some data entry. So I was, and I love that, matter of fact. And then I got hired for a job as a contractor. So that first one was contract. Then I started doing contract again. Great company. And I'm not trying to give plugs to products or any of that stuff, but a great company named by the name of Primcorp hired me.
Spell it.
PRIMCORP.
Thank you.
They are a great retiree owned company. The two great folks who run it, Pierre Redmond and Michelle Smith, outstanding, great folks, take care of their folks. Um, but they were a small subcontract. So what you'll have is the big companies like Booz Allen might get a contract, but then they'll sub out to other companies. So Primcor was who I worked for, and went out and started working at Maxwell Air Force Base. Great place. And I was doing getting Air Force foreign area officers ready to head out for 6 months. So I did that for about 20 months, I think, and really just wanted to do something different at that point. I found my niche of that international affairs realm, and that's where I found myself today, where I pretty much teach for a living.
Gotcha. When you left, tell us about 2 or 3 of the mistakes or misconceptions you had when you were leaving the service about what it was going to be like to transition.
I thought that I was going to walk out and automatically walk in the next day. I was very, I'll say this, I was very obtuse, and I was very cocky. I was, hey, I'm going to be the next guy, I'm going to go find this. Everybody's going to be barking at my door wanting to hire the military member, No.
How'd you get that idea, by the way? Is it drilled into your head in the service?
I think sometimes it is drilled into your head in the service. You think, oh, everybody wants to hire military. You always hear that companies are looking to hire veterans and, all these opportunities for veterans and stuff. And there are a lot of companies out there that want to hire veterans. What it comes down to is they're only going to do it if they find you to be marketable. Yeah, and that's not meant to knock. Most companies will jump at the bit to hire a veteran. That's my belief. They will, because they know with the veteran, I can get somebody who is they're going to be hardworking. They're going to be dedicated. They're going to go in, always do what they need to do. There are things in a skill set that we bring with us, but there's also the other things that companies sometimes have to look at. If you're retiring after 20 years, so you signed up at 18 and you're hiring somebody who's 38 or 39 years old, that's a new person you have to teach. So you have to think about those things. So there's trade-offs from it. If I got a 4-year vet who, 4 or 6-year vet who has an associate's degree, is working on college, they're in their mid-20s coming out, I can probably get more out of that person than I can out of a 38-year vet. You're going to have some, and a lot of it is personality driven. It is about finding, most folks are going to say, am I going to have somebody who's open-minded? Am I going to have somebody who is going to be able to tell me, who is going to be, will they be open-minded? Will they be able to go with change? And then how will they respond? That's the other thing. If, are they going to be able to respond to taking insight from a boss when they maybe have at one point been the commander, or overseen 200 or 300 troops? So those are things that I think are concerning. So that was probably my biggest mistake, is that I walked out the door thinking I was going to get hired.
One thing, there's a woman I interviewed yesterday. Her show is going to be on in a couple of weeks. And she did a book for older professionals that I think has a major point that relates to those of you who are leaving the service. And older professionals kind of get stuck in their ways. They think they know because they've done it for the longest time. Back in the Stone Ages when I started, and they pontificate and they bask in their own magnificence. Sound familiar, guys? Sound familiar, women? Well, her thing is firms don't care exclusively about what you've done. They want to know that what you can do is going to be relevant to them. And thus, it's important to connect the dots between your past, your future, and what you can deliver for an organization. And not just simply walk in, arms folded in front of your chest, ready to tell all the great old stories about what you did wherever you were stationed. And without that, you're not really making the connection between what you can do and what they need. That's so important when organizations hire. Is that part of what you learned along the way?
Yes, very much so. It's and and I will tell you, you will discover in your job hunt what organizations are looking for bodies to just fill seats, and that's something else. There are organizations that'll hire up veterans in a heartbeat because they just need a body to fill a seat, and maybe that is something that somebody who's transitioning needs to do until they can find what they're looking to do, which again is fine. Sometimes you just need something that's going to help pay the bills.
Take the check, guys. Take the check, ladies. Get out there, cash the checks.
Yeah, and that is perfectly okay. The other thing is I used to beat myself up. Now I'll consider this a mistake. If a job did not fall in line, I felt like, oh man, I was the one who made the mistake. That is something you cannot do in this. When you are negative and you are beating yourself, companies, bosses are gonna know that. They're going to see it. If you walk in thinking you got a job. So I remember I walked in thinking, oh, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get this job. After a 30-minute interview, I walked out the door deflated. I thought I walked in cocky. They could tell I was cocky and that I was arrogant. And I walked out, man, I really messed that one up. And I'll tell you the truth, I'm kind of glad that didn't work out because it humbled me. Humility will be your greatest thing, but you cannot beat yourself up with this. You have to realize that finding a job sometimes is a journey. Finding where you're at is a journey in life. And sometimes it takes the thing. One thing I will highlight, find a mentor. There is a great organization. Now, this is some inside ball that I'm going to give every listener that's going to help you, I promise. And I hope they experience a surge in phone calls from veterans who are getting ready to get out of the military after I mention this. But it's American Corporate Partners, ACP. ACP is an organization that will, about a year, you want to do this about a year, I would even go 18, 24 months out even, reach out to them, say, hey, I know I'm going to be retiring from the service. I need somebody from the civilian sector to mentor me. Tell you what, that was by far the greatest decision I made. I just was searching on the web because I had this brain in my head. I think it was December of 2016. And I think it was just, no, I'm sorry, December of 2015. I had to think about it because I retired August of 2016. And I found American Corporate Partners, called them up, said what I was looking for. They lined me up with a mentor from John Deere, one of the greatest people in my life who helped me out. But what they do is they link you up with mentors from Fortune 500 companies. There's one lady I worked with, I told her about ACP. She had a mentor from Disney. A buddy of mine who uses ACP, he has a mentor from who's working for ADT now. So they will link you up with, and this is not fly by night. This is people from, no kidding, real Fortune 500 companies in the public sector. And these guys will help you with, with resume writing. They will help you with building things to do, and they're going to spend the time with you. And these are people who want to be doing this.
I assume they'll help with networking as well, because they have
Yes.
civilian networks that they've already established for themselves that they're willing to share.
Yes. And a lot of that, when you start getting into the mentor-mentee relationship with American Corporate Partners, that has to come. They will do that, but a lot of that is going to come from you having to, as an individual, the mentee, you have to put trust in. You have to take this serious because they're taking it serious. So that is something that I really, really want to stomp on hard is when you go into an organization like ACP and that mentor-mentee relationship, take that serious. Take the time with their civilian networks serious, because those guys are the folks they're going to refer you to are going to help you. And they're also going to give you the tips on how to help you build your network as well, too, and where to be looking at.
Excellent. We're starting to come up on the end of time with one another today. What haven't we covered yet that we really should?
The big thing is I would tell people to keep up the fight. Just keep working hard on things. Do not ever give up in this fight. Finding a job if you walk out of the interview and it hasn't fully worked to the best, don't beat yourself up. Really, really take advantage of what take advantage of what you have to offer. And a lot of it really comes back to finding ways to reward it. That is really the biggest thing. There are great sites out there that I will highlight. And one last thing I want to highlight, you got these folks, for folks who want to do a job build, or they want to go and be an entrepreneur and find a way to do things. I would tell them Jeff, to check out those things that you're offering. And I would tell folks to check out your products on interviewing techniques. But one other individual who I would highlight is Patrick Bet-David. He runs a channel on YouTube called Valuetainment, which is geared strictly towards entrepreneurs. And he talks about things, why entrepreneurs succeed, fail. And he is a former Army guy.
Excellent.
Yeah, he is the only guy, if you're going to be going into business, there's a lot of guys out there, but I would really highlight, again, Jeff, I would highlight these guys. Come check you out. Look to you for your great advice. Take advantage of a lot of the services you offer, because I know you've got the know-how to get these guys prepped. But that's the only other one. But other than that, that is really everything that I can share at the basic level.
Thank you. How can people find out more about you, your work, connect with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
LinkedIn. You can go to Bryce, BRYCE, Englin, ENGLIN, and you should see me out there on LinkedIn.
Now, there's more than one of you on LinkedIn, or at least more than one with that name. Other than my saying he's the good-looking one.
Probably the T in the middle initial, Bryce T. Englin.
Gotcha. Bryce, thank you. And folks, we'll be back soon with more. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you found today's show helpful. Bryce mentioned, some of the things that I offer. I've got a great website at thebiggamehunter.us. Go to the blog and go exploring. There's more than 10,000 posts in there that can help you with your search, whether you're in or out. Also going to mention, I've got a video course on interviewing called the Ultimate Job Interview Framework. If you go to thebiggamehunter.us/interviews, it's like $35 for the course. It will help you interview better than others. And if you don't want to do it by video, I've got it as a paperback or a Kindle book on Amazon. Again, that's the Ultimate Job Interview Framework. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the-big-game-hunter. My network is going to be bigger than yours. I was member 7653 on LinkedIn back in the day. Now it's 700 million people. So I was in the first 10,000. And without a lot of effort, my network is going to be bigger than yours. You can take advantage of that network to your heart's content. Folks, I hope you have a terrific day. And most importantly, be great. Take care.